Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crossing Borders. I'm Mike Yin. The guy squirming on the other side, that's Extremo Alex Soto, fresh off his workcation from Cancun. Of course, he was down there for LUX 20. We'll talk about that card, talk about King Silva doing his thing. Of course, before we get to that, FightersFirst.shop. Check out all the latest and greatest merch. Represent FightersFirst.shop and hit that like and subscribe button and the little bell if you want, so you never miss another episode. But that's the business side of things. Alex, how you doing off your workcation?
It was great, man. It was great. I need a little workcation. You know what I'm talking about.
You're looking a little tan there.
Yeah, I'm walking here in San Diego. You know, it's a beautiful day. Sun's out, you know, and the beaches are beautiful right here right now in San Diego.
Are you back to the 70s now?
Yeah. But I'm also, missing Cancun because Cancun, the weather was just equally as nice, but I would say a little bit better too.
Well, since we're giving weather reports, it's been in the 80s the last couple of days here, so we're good.
You're used to this, so to you it's not a big deal. So I don't get a big,
we got the Florida
reaction.
Fair going on. We got spring getting ready to pop off. What we call Summer Junior.
Okay.
So we're good. We're ready to go. We got over our 60s and 70-degree days. We're starting to roll back into the 80s. You know, we're good.
65 right now.
65. I think I'm at 82 or 83 or something. But
man,
sooner or later, soon we'll be at that beach weather. It's almost there.
It's ridiculous.
It's at that point where it's nice outside, but the water's still freezing. So you gotta get that water temperature up just a little bit, and then you can just walk right into it. No warm up, no nothing. Just right in.
That's how I like to get in.
I mean, you have the Pacific Ocean. You haven't seen that in years.
Dude, yeah. It's freezing. The water here is cold.
The Pacific Ocean is always cold. My wife and I, when we went on our honeymoon to San Francisco, we wanted to put our feet in the Pacific Ocean. That was a mistake. It was so cold. We didn't get in the water. We just put our feet in, just to say we did it. But
yeah, no, it's terrible.
But since now everybody's tuned out of our episode, let's get back on the subject, man. Last week, LUX 20, LUX Fight League 20, available everywhere. Of course, on Fight Pass, you want to go catch the main card, watch that replay. Headlined by the featherweight championship on the line, King Silva versus Ram Cabela. Man, it was Cabello. Sorry. American, gringo.
I know. But you're there. Yeah, from there.
Well, I mean, he fights here sometimes too. He's been around for a while. Anyway, Silva, obviously up and coming prospect, been on the rise for a minute. Cabello, very talented veteran, and Silva just made quick work of that guy. Amazing performance, locked in that rear naked choke. What happened in that main event?
Dude, I got to tell you, Mike, that was impressive to watch. That guy, Erik Silva, is the real deal, man. Honestly, after that fight, we were all talking backstage, talking to Matchmaker, talking to also my partner in crime, Francisco Escobar, about, man, who could take Erik Silva? I mean, who else we got 145 pounds? Now, we were saying the same thing about Diego Lopez. What would Diego Lopez do against Erik Silva? How would that fight kind of pan out, man?
I mean, looking the way Silva looked, I don't think Diego would be the challenge that he thinks he would be. Now, every fighter thinks he has a chance to beat every other fighter in the world, especially if they're a confident fighter, and Diego Lopez is no exception. But Silva looking like a beast.
Yeah, man. He's only had 8 fights. He's 7-1.
8-1.
Or 8-1 now. He's a beast, man. And on top of that, he shows us again, another, his 4th in a row rear naked choke. And when he cut him with the elbow, he tells the ref, "Hey, this fight's over, man." Like, he's already on him. He goes, "Hey, this cut is done. It's a one and done deal." If the ref let it happen and let it go, and then I saw the most gruesome blood squirting out of somebody's head that I've seen in all my career. I've never seen anything like it.
The Diaz fight?
Well, I mean, the Diaz fight's got blood, but you weren't squeezing him.
A Julio Arce fight?
I've never seen blood actually pulsating out. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I mean, I have, but it was gruesome. Yeah, it was gruesome though. Like, I agree with you. I was watching it. I didn't watch it live. I watched it back, and I was just like, "Holy crap!" Like, that's just like Silva's for real. Like, he was just destroying this dude, and It's kind of funny you mentioned the rear naked choke. He's like lived by the choke, died by the choke, because his only loss way back in like 2016 was also conveniently he lost to a rear naked choke. And
Yeah,
then after that, he just started choking everybody else out. We
yeah,
talked about it last week when we were talking about the preview for this show. And it's like that's his go-to move. Like, and we've talked about it before. Like we talk about it with Davison Figueiredo and Cody McKenzie back in the day who had the guillotines. It's like
yeah,
a guy is looking for one move. And you need to do, even if you have to like get in full mount, like you have to do whatever you have to do. But this case, man, Cabello was already pretty much done before the choke even got put in. So
yeah. No, and not only that's what he does. He just kind of demolishes each of his guys up to the point where they give up their backs, and he sinks in a very not he doesn't fight off this. He doesn't just go for that. It just always presents itself because guys just cower over.
I mean, he has a vicious ground and pound. Yeah,
it's tough, man. It's a vicious ground and pound. So I like I said, if I were to Diego Lopez is gone. I think 2-0 or 3. Lost his last 2 fights, I believe. And they're still trying to get him on a UFC contract. Oh, he won his last one, so he's lost 2 and won 1.
Yeah,
and he's lost his recent one with a beautiful knockout. So who knows?
I think one of his fights got canceled or postponed too.
Gotcha. So he's he's trying to get his name in the game and he's trying to move on. But I'd love to see that fight, man. I mean, that's a fight that maybe could follow him in the UFC that I'd love to see.
So assuming Lopez is gone, who else is left to fight Silva at 145?
I don't know, man. Honestly, I don't know who even comes close to that. Who's in the mention for 145 pounds? I know guys that I know that have fought at 145 pounds, but now have moved up, like Alejandro Pato Martinez. He's moved to 155 pounds. That might be a good fight. But they're no longer fighting at that weight class, so.
I mean, Rubio Perez, who won in the card too, he's at 145. He's 18-11, longtime veteran. He might put
he's tiny.
He's tiny, but he's still in the same weight class.
Yeah, he fought at 135 that night. Rubio, right? Talking about Rubio, who was in the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
He ended up fighting that night and did beautifully. But he fought at 100 at a catch weight 140 pounds. But he's a bantamweight, man. He's after seeing him like actual live, I don't think he's like a big kid, and I don't think 145 is his weight class.
What about Beltran? Isn't he around 145, or is he 155?
Marco Beltran?
Yeah.
He's the champ, 135 pounds.
35. Okay.
Yeah, and he's a big boy too. He's a big one.
That could be a nice super fight.
Yeah, it would, but yeah, even then, I think Erik Silva just has a lot of aggression, man.
But we say that, and honestly, that kid kind of saying the same thing we said about Bam Bam Valenzuela. That kid has star potential, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in a Dana White Contender Series fight next. And I don't think it's going to be much defending that 145-pound title. I really do think he's going to be gone quicker than sooner than later, and he may defend it once, but I think 8-1 kid is skyrocketing up the charts. I think he's like number 4 in Latin America in the rankings now after this win. People like that pop up on Dana's radar real quick for the Contender Series. And heck, they just signed Taira, is that his name? We talked about him last week on Art of May. Japanese kid who's like 10-0. And Dana and them are starting to expand back to their international reach to where they're giving these multi-fight deals to guys who really haven't proven themselves on the U.S. stage. A lot of U.S. fighters have to go in, win Contender Series, do this, do that.
Right.
Dana's starting to get some of this international because they're obviously trying to draw from the international audiences a lot more. And now they're getting ready to travel again soon. So who knows? He might be able to just skip the line and go straight to the UFC.
I'd love that.
We'll see. There's a lot of great fights at 145 pounds in the UFC, as we know. And even actually, I'll go a step further. PFL, their featherweight tournament this last run with Chris Wade and what's his name? Khabib's guy. Mamalev? No.
Magomedov.
Magomedov. Like that was an incredible tournament and finals for that. So PFL's another route at 145 pounds. Bellator with AJ McKee and Aaron Pico, Pitbull, all those guys. they just announced Pitbull and AJ McKee are getting ready to run it back.
Nice.
They're going to do it in California again. So up the coast from you a little bit. I think they're doing it in San Jose. So probably what was that, 6 hours from you?
From me,
Yeah.
San Jose. Yeah, it's about 6 hour drive. Yeah, it's up there. It's right before getting to San Francisco.
Yeah. So I think that's where I heard they're getting ready to run that one back. So that'll be interesting. But 145 pound is a very deep professional division. And if it's not in Luke's, which we obviously hope he does at least give you guys one more great show.
Yeah.
I think he's ready to go. I think he's proven that he's ready to go.
Wow, that's quite the compliment there, Mike. I agree. I think he's got that. You're sold. You're sold on that fighter right there. I like that.
When I put my stamp of approval on stuff, that means something. It doesn't mean anything, but I definitely enjoy watching the kid fight.
It's good, man.
Let's shift gears over to that co-main event. Sure. Alan Dominguez, your boy, David Briones, unanimous decision. What happened in that fight?
That was Alan Dominguez just tearing him apart, really. Starting off with Briones coming in a little bit aggressive, a little bit of work, and it looked like it was getting the attention of Dominguez, but El Tiburón Blanco, as they call him, he came out and started slowly just chipping away and adding more arsenals as the fight progressed. And it was really good performance by him. It was exactly what we needed to see for him to come out after a loss and losing against Draco Cosillo. And cause he didn't really show that much in that fight and performing really well. He did need a good performance. And he's dating one of the girls there. What's her name? Gosh, Acosta or. Damn,
I'm not sure on your ring girls' names, y'all. You have to tell me that one.
No, she's one of the fighters. She's one of the fighters at.
He's dating one of the fighters. Oh,
yes, and it's like the super couple there. It's awesome.
I will leave the backstage gossip to you. I don't know the backstage. No, I haven't been invited on one of these Cancun trips yet. I mean, you need a digital something. I'm there, but I haven't had my phone ring yet for Luke to go to Cancun to enjoy.
Let's go to Guadalajara. Guadalajara next one, March 11th, I think. Let's go. Luke's 21.
I would love to. Shoot. Let's get some tequila. Let's get some go down to Jalisco. I gotta update my passport first though.
Oh, you gotta do that, man. Come on.
Yeah, I let it expire like an idiot, and then now it's like a mess, so I just keep delaying it, and I'm like, I'll deal with them later.
Opportunities are coming, man. They'll be knocking.
Supposed to go to South America, supposed to go to Europe, but all that travel's kind of shut down anyway, so I'm just like, I'm not in a rush. So,
all right.
I mean, I could take a workcation to Mexico, so it might be worth it. So I might have to get in there. What do you think is next for Dominguez? He's been kind of up and down. Now he's 6-4. Lightweight division is not super deep in Luke's.
It's not. So I think that for him, it's just we got to see some spectacular highlight reels, like when he was back to knocking dudes out. You know what I mean? So we need to go back to that.
That, and you also mentioned, Pato Martinez moving up 155. That's another fight there.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't make weight last time. They did the catch weight. Veteran like Fernando Martinez is sitting there.
Yes.
So there's a couple names. I don't think Dominguez is going anywhere. I think he's probably going to be a Luke's long timer. So always fun to watch him in the cage, though. He's very, very fun. I told you the big boys were going to throw it down. Man, Camargo, man, that dude. Oh, it did not take very long for him to get rid of Romero. What happened in the welterweight fight?
Dude, and I told you, this is one of those kids that, he did that knockout that, scared me when I watched him. When I watched the guy just collapse and just not wake up. And this Camargo kid's going to be one of those guys where it's kind of like Silva, where Erik Silva was coming around, rear naked choking everybody, and then you put him up there with a little bit higher level talent, and he still surprises you, and he still delivers a great performance, still gets the knockout and gets a submission. The same thing with Camargo, dude. He's one of those guys that's kind of underneath the radar. Yeah, he got a great knockout, and then now again with that performance, holy shit, man! I was kind of blown away by his talent. He's got a really heavy right hand.
4-1 now. He's another guy that they have a hard time finding a matchup for because it's not a very deep division. We talked about it in the past. A lot of these lighter weight divisions are kind of deep, but some of the bigger boys, 170, Bam Bam Valenzuela, and 185, they're bringing people from around the world trying to bring them in to get a fight. I think he still needs some time. Like, I mean, he's only been 5 fights in. Probably needs
Yeah.
1 or 2 more before he makes that jump. But he's fun and he's exciting to watch. And just like over the little guys, 125 pounds, Ramon Cardoza, he had a vicious knockout in the second round. Like both those were
Dude,
like highlight films.
Cardoza, dude, with the stepping in elbow, with the right hand elbow, it was so beautifully landed and so beautifully placed, man. I was just like, oh man, that was my favorite knockout of the night, right there. I, for 125 pounders, you don't see that. You don't see knockouts like that at 125 pounds. Kids stumbling, doing the chicken dance, collapsing in like that, and then finally, getting finished off that way. Man, Cardoso is one of my favorite 125 pounder. I think he should be. I think he should be moving up, maybe even challenging Alessandro Nono Acosta. But I
That's a
think
big
Costa
step.
takes that. I think Costa takes that big step. I think you're right. I think Acosta goes over to the UFC or heads up to other pastures there, and I think Diskit steps up in that and fills that void, man, because he's exciting to watch.
Costa's in a tough position because that's a big step. There's like one, and then like don't get me wrong, Kiki Gonzalez brought the fight to Costa last time, but even he showed that no matter how game he was, Costa still got him out of there.
Yep.
And then 125 pounds, unfortunately, the only place you really can go is the UFC. They're the only ones that really have that kind of division. Or one. Actually, I take it back. One has a very deep. They have a very deep lighter weight divisions. But you don't see much in Bellator and PFL as far as 125 pound.
Yeah.
Unless he wants to pop up to 135, but I don't know if his power goes up. You never know when somebody jumps weight classes.
Yeah.
I mean, but he has power. I mean, we know him to be a jiu-jitsu guy, but he has power. So, I mean, obviously he finished off Kiki with the ground and pound. So you guys also had the opportunity to showcase some up-and-coming fighters. You had a special thing you did with ESPN. What kind of, out of those fighters on that first part of the card, what any of them jump out to you, kind of catch your eye?
Well, honestly, that main event with Rubio on there performing the way he did, that was kind of like the highlight, I think, for that portion of the ESPN fight. I think he looked great. I think he fought at 145 pounds. We were all kind of wondering, okay, how's he going to do? Is he trying to cut down on 135? Looking at him and seeing his performance, I think 135 is definitely his go-to weight class. I hope he drops down there. I think having him going up against Marco Beltran would be a good one. I just think there's a nice little storyboard there. 2 former UFC fighters going after each other, getting that belt, and I think that's what makes that fight card on ESPN interesting.
What about that Alfonso knockout?
It was awesome as hell, man. Don't get me wrong.
I was gonna say you talking about something that went into the second round. Man, Alfonso
Yeah.
took care of Lopez quick. I mean, midway through the first round knockout, you had Vasquez with the ground and pound finish in the first round. You had the kind of controversial split decision between Maldonado and Farrell to start the night.
Yeah.
I still, you know what? I don't think it was a bad decision, but I don't really know if I agree with it. Does that make sense? Like it could have gone either way.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of judging is just that judging criteria. We talked about it on the show before.
I mean,
it's a toss-up,
we've talked
man.
about MMA judging for so many times. Like at this point,
Yeah,
people know.
they know. Yeah, they know. So I mean, that's why you don't leave it up to the judges. As a fighter, you got to try to finish that fight every second you can. Yeah, you're having fun.
It's not like Whittaker and Izzy. It wasn't that big of a deal as far as the decision goes, but
right.
It was a very close fight.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was a close fight. It could have gone either way for both those guys, but it was fun to watch, man. It was a entertaining stuff. That's how we started off the show down there in Cancun.
While I have you on the spot, who won, Izzy or Whittaker?
Izzy won.
You think he won?
Yeah.
Clearly? You're hedging.
It's tough, man. I mean, come on. Why you gotta put me
But
like that, dude? Like, it's
that's
not
my
that I
that's
know
my
both these guys or I'm
that's my job.
invested in their
That's my job to
thing.
put
It's
you in
just
spots like that.
I gotta watch that fight again and be a little bit more analytical about it.
Personally,
You
I
know?
thought Whittaker won, but I
Okay.
don't. It wasn't egregious. Like it wasn't MMA judging being MMA judging. I see how
Yeah.
people could have chose Izzy to win. I thought some rounds, like the scorecards were all over the place. Like
Yeah.
Mike Beltran definitely needs to stick to reffing. I don't think he needs to be judging any more fights because his scorecard was like clearly like the worst of the three. But
Right.
all three judges had different rounds for different fighters. That's just how it shows you how close each round was. Did the
Yeah.
takedowns hold more weight? Does cage control? Do calf kicks? Like, because first round was obviously Izzy. The second through fifth round, or second through fourth round, was up in the air, and the fifth round was pretty much obviously Whittaker.
Yeah.
Everything in the middle is like who you got. And like at first, I thought I was crazy because I thought Whittaker won, and
Yeah.
everybody else was like, Izzy did this, Izzy did that. And I'm like, well, maybe I was just looking through fan eyes because I picked Whittaker. I don't know. Let me like
Yeah.
rewatch it. And then I saw Chandler and Gaethje and other people come out and say they thought Whittaker won. And I'm like, I'm not crazy.
No,
so
you're not crazy, man. It's
so
just
it was a close
there's a
fight.
bias. There's a bias to it. You know,
There's
there's a
always
bias
a
to it.
bias.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you're a fan. I don't like the theory that, and of course we always get sidetracked. I don't like the theory that a champion's advantage when it comes to MMA because UFC in particular does something that no other MMA, well maybe other MMA promotions
Or
do,
combat
but
sport.
no other combat sport really does. Is that every title fight is its own championship fight. It's not like you have a title reign, right? Like John Jones has like 8 championships or whatever it was because he defended his belt that many times. And
Okay.
when you go into it, you're basically a brand new champion every time you win. It's not like professional wrestling where, a champion was champion for a year and everybody who he beat, it was just one title reign, right? But when,
Interesting.
when, when
Okay.
you're champion in UFC, they make a big deal out of it. Every time you win, like right now, Francis Ngannou is a 2-time heavyweight champion because he's won 2 fights in title fights. That's
Yeah.
kind of he has 2 belts on his wall now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that they give you a new belt every single time. And so when you do that, it kind of like defeats what you call a champion's advantage. Like I kind of agree, you got to go in and beat a champion, but if every fight is kind of on its own merits, then whatever way the judges rule it, it should just be doesn't matter who the champion is. It should just be straight up.
Hmm.
I mean, am I crazy? You can say
Uh,
it. I know I am. It's fine.
no, it's okay. I like how you're mixing in. What's interesting is you're mixing in the scoring process with boxing or combat sports etiquette, or there's that ego part of it, right? That's like an etiquette thing. You know, the champion always is the first one. The challenger goes in first, and the champion goes in second
And then they
when you
always
go
say
into the ring,
you got to do enough to take the belt from the champion. Like you
right?
can't
And
just go out and win. You gotta beat the champion.
you got to beat the champion, right? And does that really take effect on the rule books? Is that in the thing in the judging scoring criteria when you're looking at the rules? I don't think it does. I
I think it
think
does. Like you just said, biased. I think they
uh,
clearly.
I don't think so. I think it shouldn't be. It might be true, but I think it shouldn't be. I think every round should be considered its own fight, regardless of the. If you can't. What if the guy doesn't beat him for 5 rounds? He doesn't like really destroy him for 5 rounds and just loses it. Like
Or
does
just
that?
does leg kicks for 3 rounds.
Yeah, does leg kicks. Oh, you're talking about Maya and
I was
Anderson
talking about
Silva.
Izzy.
Okay,
He
there we go.
basically only landed calf kicks for like the last 3 rounds. That's all he really did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's the strategy, right? What's the strategy of the fight?
He played
You
it
try to,
safe. He played it
yeah,
safe.
yeah. If
There's
you're
no
trying
fault. There's
to,
no fault in that. If you can
none.
get away with it and win and keep yourself pretty, like the goal is not to get hurt in a fight. The goal is to go out there and
Exactly.
beat up your opponent and not get hurt. Not everything has to be a Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje fight. Not everything has to be a Diaz fight. You don't have to go out there and become a bloody mess.
But
You
it's all
can.
about pride. It's all about pride, man. You want to
It's all
put
about getting paid.
eyeballs. Exactly. It's all about that pride. It's all about that money when you're coming in there with some swag and getting those extra. Then when it comes to a negotiating table and you're talking about pay-per-view points, and you're saying, well, I'm bringing in all these people in to come watch me. They all want to know about this next fight. You know,
I mean, that famously was Tyron Woodley's problem, right? When he was champion, Dana never really appreciated him because all he did was do what it took to win. He didn't do anything special. He did a lot of flashy stuff to get there, but then once he hit those Wonder Boy fights and everything else, he just played it safe. He didn't do it too much, and he won, and he kept winning.
I'll give you an interesting one. I thought it was really interesting. Sean O'Malley calling out Dominick Cruz because Dominick Cruz was not coming out on the pay-per-view fight card, and Sean O'Malley was, and kind of dogging on Dominick for it. And I was like, oh shit, yeah, that is true. I mean, that's the business, man. That's the business model.
They got a little personal beef because Dominick tried to call him out, and Sean actually said yes, and the UFC matchmakers were like, that doesn't really interest us. So it never actually happened. Sean O'Malley's another one of those guys. It's all about the money, right? Like, he made a point. He's like, if I get paid the same amount to fight X fighter as Y fighter, and Y fighter is ranked, why wouldn't I pick X fighter when it's a safer fight and I can get paid the same amount of money?
Right.
And you hear Paddy Pimblett, Paddy the Baddy, saying the same thing. He came out a couple weeks ago. He's like, if I'm getting paid less than these guys, why would I take that fight? When I get paid the same as them, then I'll fight them. And it's kind of that prize fighter mentality. Like my man Brandon Coutinho out of MMA says it all the time. Get paid to fight. You put on those gloves, or you put on those trunks, paid to fight. And you're not doing it for free. That's sparring in the gym. You step on the big stage and the lights where everybody can see.
That's where pride comes in right there, dude. The promoters dangle that in front of you, you know, like, hey, here you go. It's such an interesting, man. It's those enlightened fighters like Sean O'Malley, you know, like Conor McGregor, those guys that have it figured out and have the ability to put that prideful part to the side and just and then, you know, of course, their natural ability and their tough strength, mental strength attached to that, and being able to really succeed in the business. It's awesome, man.
Yeah, I mean, people, they do it in all sports. It's not just combat sports, but they tend to not be able to separate their like or dislike for a fighter and then their accomplishments. You know, you look in professional football, right? How many cocky, like, Terrell Owens and Randy Mosses in the world who set all kinds of records, but people don't like them. You look in boxing and Floyd Mayweather, right? 50-0, but people don't like him. And they can't separate the fact that this guy, take Floyd Mayweather, talking about combat sports, look how much money he's generated. Take your boy Oscar De La Hoya you were talking about last week. Look how much money they generated. And it's not even how much money they generated for themselves. That trickles down to the other people on that fight card.
Yeah.
Like De La Hoya took that money, started Golden Boy Promotions, even had his own MMA fight with Tito and Liddell. And those guys got paid more in that fight than they did half their career in the UFC. Because they took that money and trickled it down, whether you like the fighter or not like the fighter. And by the way, while we're getting sidetracked, I also want to be remiss. When De La Hoya fought Chavez, De La Hoya was in his prime and Chavez was on his way down. So I did forget to mention that last week.
You did. I can't believe you didn't bring that up. They actually fought each other, and I was like, okay, well,
yeah.
If you don't want to talk facts, they
didn't even fight in Mexico. They fought in L.A. at the L.A. Coliseum, and then they're supposed to now. De La Hoya is trying to get him again in a Triller fight. He's trying to get him in one of the Triller fights. He wants Chavez to come out. I mean, Chavez did fight last year on that.
He did.
You know the Anderson Silva Chavez Jr. fight last year, where Anderson
the Junior, yeah. Oh, he wants to fight Junior.
No, so Anderson Silva knocked out Chavez Jr. last year, right? On that same fight card, Chavez Sr. fought. He fought Camacho Jr.
No way.
Hector, he beat up Hector Camacho's son. Now, of course, Camacho is no longer with us, unfortunately. Right. And so it was his son who also has a little bit of a career as well. It wasn't like he wasn't a boxer. Camacho Jr. was a boxer as well. And then now that Cesar Chavez Sr. had to fight, and De La Hoya is still looking for an opponent because his matchups keep falling out. You know, he calls out everybody, and then something happens. He's now calling out Chavez for a rematch, 20 years later, 30 years later, whatever it's been.
That's cool. That's
but
awesome.
Careful what you ask for, because even though De La Hoya is way bigger than him now, Chavez Sr. looked vicious in that little matchup. He was lighting up Camacho Jr. So you guys want to go on YouTube, go ahead and check that one out.
2-division Olympic champion, world WBC, WBO boxing champion of the world,
And
and beat Cesar Chavez. I mean, what else do you want, man? He is the greatest of all time.
Somebody actually born in Mexico. And while I'm on that, somebody pointed out that Chavez didn't make it to 100-0. You're right. I think he was like 94-0 or something like that before he lost.
Yeah, 94.
I think 94 is a pretty good number before you lose a fight. I'm just
saying.
Number. Yeah. I'm just saying. But there are also many other people. We also could have said Canelo. That's another guy, Mexican born, that is one of the greatest Mexican combat sports athletes.
I agree. I think he's today's, Oscar de la Hoya. He's today's Cesar Chavez.
I mean, De La Hoya is a great American fighter.
Mexican American who doesn't like to wake up early.
We're all something American. We're all born from immigrants. Very few of us are Native American. We all come from somewhere. This dude was born and raised, and he was an American Olympian, not a Mexican Olympian. He was an American Olympian.
He had a piñata at his birthday party, dude.
I had a piñata at my birthday party. What does that mean?
Oh man, that's hilarious. My God. It's a good point, though. You bring a good point. Good point.
Anyway, just had to finish that thought out from last week. Before we get out of here, Alex, any other final thoughts on the fight card last weekend?
No. Just stay tuned. If you're on UFC Fight Pass, check out the Fight Library. All of the LUX event are on there, and you'll get to hear my voice on that. And so we're calling all the fights there. So it's a fun, interesting, great fights.
I hear rumor he even wore pants for this event. So
this one I had to. Yes.
And then March 18th, LUX will be back in action down in Monterey. Got the ladies headline in this one, right? Alba and that's a tournament final, right?
VS Mil. Yeah, it is. It's going to be it's going to be
featherweight champion or flyweight champion.
Flyweight champion. That's correct. It's going to be action-packed, man. A lot of technique in the girls' fights.
Way too early to pick. We still got a month to go, but who do you think has the edge in that one?
I think VS Mil might take this one.
All right,
but we'll see.
We'll stay tuned to that. I'm sure the fight card will come together as we get closer. I'm still waiting to see my Cholo Reyes back in action. I love watching that guy fight. I haven't seen him on a couple cards, so you're gonna tell your people down in LUX, get my guy back in action. I love watching him fight. He loves to scrap. Always a fun time. And man, LUX 20 was off the charts. It was a really great show. Check out UFC Fight Pass. Check out some of the stuff on YouTube. Heck, they even got a lot of the highlights on their Instagram page. You can see some of those finishes there. So go check that out. I'll put the links in show notes. Show Luke some love. Any final words, Alex?
That's it for now. Stay tuned.
All right, stay tuned. This is Crossing Borders. I'm Mike Ginn. That's Extremo Alex Soto. We'll talk to you next time, hopefully with Alex wearing pants. We're out.
See ya.